What I want to do with this CD is explain to you why generalized anxiety disorder affects you in this way. Now, what you must understand from the start is that anxiety disorder is not a physical or mental illness. In fact, it's not an illness at all. The word disorder often is associated with illnesses, and it's completely wrong. Anxiety, high anxiety, inappropriate anxiety isn't a disorder, it isn't an illness. It's a behavioural condition which causes you to experience sensations, not symptoms, but sensations of high anxiety. Now let me explain more about why this is. Anxiety is a natural defence system. We need it to survive. It's our alarm system that tells us when there is real danger. Now in high anxiety, our baseline level of anxiety becomes reset. We've already discussed this in the manual. But you have to understand that the amygdala, which is the thermostat which regulates the anxiety level in our bodies, has become reset for whatever reason. And as this happens, generalized anxiety disorder forms. And it forms because the subconscious brain learns new anxious behaviour, and it becomes habitual. It becomes instinctual. So although no real danger is evident, we still feel the effects of high anxiety. What this means is that the sensations of fear that we associate with our anxiety disorder aren't real. And this means that you can ignore them. They don't mean anything. They're irrelevant, they're inappropriate, they don't mean a thing, and they can't cause any physical illness. So therefore we can't come to any harm when we experience these sensations. So whether those sensations be shortness of breath, tingling, dizziness, tightness around the chest, it doesn't matter. They are purely sensations, signals sent out by the anxious brain to your physical body that should be warning you that there is fear present. Now you know that there is no real fear present. There is nothing to be frightened of. So therefore you know that these physical sensations are inappropriate. And by being inappropriate, it means that they aren't trying to warn you of something. And because they're just sensations, they cannot harm you. They may feel horrific, and I've been there, so I know how they feel. However, they cannot harm you. You must believe this. Nobody has ever come to any harm from the sensations of anxiety. And I've treated tens of thousands of people worldwide with this disorder, and nobody has ever come to any harm. And I have never ever read any documentation anywhere about anybody coming to any harm during an anxiety disorder. Anxiety, panic attacks, fears and phobias associated with those disorders cannot harm you. That is fact. So let's put this into perspective. What is generalized anxiety disorder? As I've already said, the amygdala becomes reset at a higher than normal benchmark of anxiety. The fact is that the anxiety spectrum is long, and it starts with mild anxiety that could show itself as shyness, and it can go up as far as panic attacks, generalized anxiety disorder, phobias, obsessive compulsive disorder, and such conditions that lead you to lead an incredibly restricted lifestyle. But it doesn't matter where you are on that anxiety spectrum, at the very low end or at the very high end. The fact is, you still suffer from an anxiety disorder. And it doesn't matter how that anxiety disorder affects you. If you suffer from any inappropriate anxiety, it means that you have an anxiety disorder. And because you have an anxiety disorder, you need to address the issue. You need to remove that inappropriate anxiety and bring your benchmark anxiety level back down to normal. And by doing this, it changes the way that your body reacts to anxiety-provoking stimuli. So it could be that you suddenly become anxious about doing things that you normally did without anxiety. For example, just leaving the house or going out in your car. Or maybe in social situations, for example, dinner parties or nights out that you normally enjoy very, very much, suddenly become a chore. And suddenly you find yourself actually avoiding those situations and stopping yourself from going and enjoying your life as you normally would, purely because the anxiety is dictating to you that if you do those things, you're going to become more anxious and you're going to be in some sort of danger. Now obviously that just isn't true. Logic tells you it's not true. If you go to the pub, for example, it doesn't mean that you're going to become anxious or have a panic attack. You didn't before, so why should you now? It's just that your benchline anxiety level has been modified in your brain to make you believe habitually that if you do these things, your anxiety level will raise and you'll be in some kind of danger. And that just simply isn't true. It might be true that you decide now to just go out of the house and go down to the pub or go shopping or whatever. And it could be that, what I've said to you is enough to empower you to do so. And it might be that while you're out you do experience high anxiety. But what you've got to tell yourself every single time is that, yeah, I'm in the shopping mall. Yes, I'm in the cinema. I'm in my car. But normally that wouldn't make me feel anxious. So why am I feeling anxious now? And then you have to logically tell yourself, Charles is right. It's because I've modified the benchmark level of anxiety in my brain and my body is behaving inappropriately. It's reacting in a way that it normally wouldn't react. But the long and short of it all is that these sensations that are created by this behaviour can't harm you. So why give them any credibility? They don't matter. Just ignore them. Okay, it could be incredibly uncomfortable. It could even be that they come to a head with a panic attack. And that panic attack lasts a long time. It could be that it lasts 20 minutes or half an hour. Or longer. And afterwards you could feel shaky. You could feel dizzy. Maybe weak. But does that really matter? These aren't signs of physical illness. They aren't signs that something awful is going to happen to you. Nothing ever does. You have to convince yourself of this. It's so important that you understand that no matter how intense or how mild your anxiety is, it isn't going to harm you. And just because you feel anxious now doesn't mean to say that you're going to have a panic attack later if you attempt to do the things you did before. What the Linden method will teach you, and you must comply to it, because compliance is the most important factor of this. If you don't comply to the Linden method exactly, it's like leaving ingredients out of a cake. If you don't put the flour in, yes, it may still taste reasonable, but it isn't going to look very good. And at the end of the day, it isn't a cake. And it's the same with the Linden method. If you don't do exactly what I tell you to do, it won't work. But it's so incredibly simple to do so. And the more you move forward, and the greater belief you have in what I'm telling you, which is scientific fact, the more likely you are to listen to this CD today and move ahead with your life. I don't mean tomorrow or next week or next month. I mean right now. Because the moment your subconscious realises that all of those sensations mean absolutely nothing and that they can't harm you, that's the moment you change. And change to become a non-anxious person again, like you used to be. And this level of realisation is exactly what you need to switch off this anxious response in the amygdala. And by practising being a non-anxious person, instead of spending days and days and days practising being an anxious person, if you do this and practice being a non-anxious person, your subconscious will adopt this behaviour as your new anxious level. And you won't experience any anxious sensations ever again. Because you will readopt non-anxious behaviour as your subconscious norm. Your normal benchmark level of anxiety will be reset back down to normal. Now you might be saying to me, okay, well, I've tried this before. I've had hypnosis. I've done CBT. I've listened to relaxation tapes. That isn't the same. What I'm telling you is that the amygdala, which is the control centre of your anxiety level in your body, only reacts to behaviour. It can't be reprogrammed by listening to tapes, talking to a psychologist, or taking medication. The only thing it reacts to, the only thing that can change the way it behaves, is your behaviour, your physical behaviour. The way you talk, the way you walk, the way you move through life. And if you move through life behaving anxiously, it will react with anxiety. Because instinctually it's learnt to do so. And it will perpetuate that cycle until you break it, consciously break it. I'm now giving you the tools of how to do that. The Linden method will show you exactly what you've got to do to break that cycle and move forward positively with your life, retraining your amygdala, installing new software into your brain and reprogramming the amygdala to behave non-anxiously. Any psychophysiologist that knows their stuff will tell you that exactly what I'm saying is true 100%. CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, It's behavioural. It teaches you to change your behaviour to get rid of your anxiety. It's the most successful anti-anxiety technique on this planet before the Linden method. I call it the Linden method because I discovered this, and because I wrote the program that teaches people how to do this in a structured way. But this is the way that every single recovered anxiety disorder sufferer on this planet has become well again, consciously or subconsciously. If they've done it consciously, it's because somebody like me has told them how to do exactly what I do with my method. If they've done it subconsciously, it's because through life changes of some sort, through a change in job, maybe through divorce, maybe through moving to a different area or moving to a different country, for example, these people have suddenly had the behavioural changes forced upon them that the Linden method teaches you to do. And because it's been forced upon them, they haven't had any option but to follow exactly what it is that they've got to do. And they've done this, and their behaviour has changed. And because their behaviour has changed, this has had the knock-on effect of affecting the way the amygdala reacts to anxiety. It's that simple. So if you follow the Linden method, if you do exactly what I tell you to do, if you comply 100%, and you do these visualizations, and you stick to the 9 pillars rigidly, you will become well again. You will be free of your anxiety, your panic attacks, your phobias, your unwanted thoughts. All of the things that haunt you on a daily basis will be gone. If you don't comply, it won't work. And if you're not complying because there's something you don't understand, or because you're missing the point somewhere, and you'll know this if it's not working, then you must contact us. That is vitally important. This is the key to unlocking your non-anxious self. And only you can turn that key. I've given you all the tools. Read the pack, read the manual, listen to the CDs, and comply. That is the key. Good luck with the pack. If you need any help, you know where we are. And good luck with your future as a non-anxious person. And I hope you enjoy the visualization.